to more great Christmas episodes as an old-time Radio USA Christmas continues. So don't you go anywhere.
The Adventures of the Saint, starring Vincent Price. The Saint, based on characters created by Leslie Charteris and known to millions from books, magazines, and motion pictures. The Robin Hood of modern crime now comes transcribed to radio, starring Hollywood's brilliant and talented actor Vincent Price as the Saint.
Come in.
Hi, Mr. Temple.
Oh, hello, Louie.
Where are you?
I'm in my room. I'll be ready in a minute.
Hey, wait till you see my cap. I gave it a bat for Christmas.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to rush you, but if you don't hurry, Christmas Eve is going to be already Christmas morning, and what'll all them tots think?
Oh, them tots will be singularly fortunate. However, all I have to do now is get my whiskers on. There. How do I look?
Mr. Templar, if I didn't know you was Mr. Templar,
Yeah?
I wouldn't know who you were.
Louie, don't I look like Santa Claus?
This may come as a surprise to you, Mr. Templar. Santa Claus is fat.
Oh.
You're not fat.
Oh. Well, hand me that cushion from the couch, huh?
Okay. Here.
Yeah, thank you. Now then. How's that?
Now say ho, ho, ho.
What for?
Santa Clauses always say ho, ho, ho.
Oh, I see. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, anyway, you look like Santa Claus. Hey, Mr. Templar, whose idea was this?
Mrs. Winterbottom's.
Oh, the dame who annoys tots on Christmas Eve.
Mrs. Winterbottom is a very well-known philanthropist, and every Christmas Eve she collects hundreds of small children and feeds them.
Yeah. Who feeds them the rest of the year?
Don't be bitter, Louie.
Sorry.
At least I ought to give the little tots a laugh.
Yeah. And I suppose there is something to be said for Mrs. Winterbottom.
Don't say it now.
Don't worry.
There's something to be said for Santa Claus, too. He does go around filling stockings.
Yeah, I know a blonde. Shouldn't say that either, huh?
No. Someone at the door. Louie, would you mind?
No. It's probably one of them tots. Correction. It's a tot 20 years later.
Get in.
I'm already in.
Back up.
I'm backing up.
Thanks. Now reach, gents.
You know, that gun in her hand looks loaded.
Now that you mention
Reach.
For what?
The chandelier.
Can't.
Why not?
No chandelier.
Oh, a wise guy, huh?
If you're going to shoot me, I insist on knowing your name.
Just call me Sally.
Sally. And your last name?
Never mind that. How would you like to get plugged in the...
Breadbasket?
Where?
Oh, let's pass lightly over that. I wouldn't like to get plugged anywhere.
And shut up.
All right.
Where is it?
Right down the hall.
Are you trying to be smart?
Not especially.
So it's going to be like that, huh?
Like what?
Now you listen to me, Fats Boylan.
Huh?
You shut up, too.
I didn't say anything.
Well, shut up anyway.
I'm shutting up.
What was I saying?
You just finished calling me Fats Boylan.
That's right.
That's wrong. I'm not Fats Boylan.
Ha.
Well, it helps keep the conversation
Look,
going.
Fats, are you going to stop stalling and hand over the stuff, or will I have to shoot?
Since I am not Fats Boylan, and since I have no stuff to hand over, I'm afraid you'll have to shoot.
Mr. Templar, that could be fatal.
You keep quiet, punk.
Who's a punk?
You're a punk.
Mr. Templar, am I a punk?
Well, Sally is just a little confused this evening, Louie.
Confused or not, she shouldn't call me a...
Shut up. Oh.
You don't have to start bawling.
I am not bawling. I
You were just about to shoot me.
Well, I know, but then you'd bleed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't stand the sight of blood.
Why don't you strangle him?
Louie, don't be unkind. It seems to be the doorbell again.
No, wait.
Oh, it's very impolite to keep people waiting.
But I must have been followed here.
Sally, look, stop illustrating a point with that gun. It might go off.
I don't care.
But then I'd bleed.
But where can I go? I've got to hide.
Well, try the kitchen.
All right.
Oh, come on in. It's open house tonight.
my old pal, Fats.
I am not.
Boylan.
Although I'm beginning to waver. Perhaps I am. Simon, the split personality. Who are you?
Well, Joe Hudson. You remember your old pal, Hudson?
Hudson. Well, I must admit you look like a hornet, but your lines aren't as nice. Look, if I'm your old pal, why don't I know you?
Oh, that's easy. We never met personally.
Well, how else can you meet? Ignore that. But if we haven't met personally or otherwise, how can I be your pal?
Oh, I was just being friendly. Besides, you got something for me.
I have?
Great little kidder, ain't you, Fats? Ain't he, pal?
Now I feel better. I'm a pal, too.
Look, I wish I deserved your delighted choice.
Look,
but...
just leave me have the stuff, and then I'll get...
Stuff again. What stuff?
Am I going to have trouble with you?
The door behind you is open. Why don't you use it, huh? In that way, nobody will have any trouble.
I'll use it after.
After what?
Sounds like that, huh? Ever see one of these before?
I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you, but the answer is yes, I have.
Good. Then you know how it works. It shoots bullets at guys. Guys who get bullet shot at them have a habit of dying.
Really? Well, then perhaps you'd better not shoot that gun at me.
I won't. So gimme.
So I ain't got... Well, that is,
you ain't got.
Thanks, Louis.
Basic, I ain't a patient man. Hand the stuff over, or
I don't have any stuff.
Or you get shot.
I'd bleed.
Who cares?
I do. I hoped you might. However...
This could be a stall. This could be trouble, so you...
You can't shoot him.
Why not?
It's against the law. I read it in the papers. It's against the law.
Yeah, I believe you.
Oh, well, so that's okay.
Yeah, but I like doing things against the law.
Oh, well, you could go to jail.
I already been there.
Well, for shooting somebody, they'll hang you or something.
If somebody told them.
Well, I would.
You would, huh?
I would.
So maybe I'd better shoot you first.
Well, I wouldn't want to deprive Mr. Templar of the privilege.
Well, Fats, it's your last chance.
Oh, not that phrase. Also, I still don't know...
So it looks like I'm going to break a law. Hey, who did that?
You did, you dope.
I did not. This here's a plan. But you won't get away with it.
Goodbye, Mr. Hudson.
Mr. Templar, who made with the artillery?
It must have been Sally. She's in the kitchen.
She can stay there.
She saved our lives, Louis.
Yeah, but maybe by now she's found out she likes to shoot guns.
Let's hope not.
Hello.
It was nice of you to frighten Mr. Hudson off.
I did?
You did.
I didn't hit anybody?
No.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Hey, I've got her.
She's out cold.
Come on, up. Put her on the couch. Yeah. Come on. Up. Mm-hmm.
It's a little late, but somebody ought to mention she is not a bad-looking dish.
You've mentioned it.
Looking for smelling salts in her bag?
No. Identification. Here's a driver's license. Her name is Sally Walters. Address 49 Arden Drive. Social Security card. She's the secretary.
That's what I need. Take it back.
She's coming, too. Better put the bag back.
Yeah, but keep the gun, though. There's still some bullets in it.
No. We don't want her to know we went through her bag.
We're ashamed of ourselves?
We're going to pay her a visit.
She ain't home.
But she will be after she leaves here, and then perhaps we can find out what keeps the home fires burning.
Sally was in kind of a hurry leaving us.
So she was.
Mr. Templar, don't look right, Santa Claus chasing a blonde.
I'm not chasing her.
Technicalities will get you no place. Hey, this must be it. 49. What is she a secretary of? The Treasury?
I suspect this is where she works, Louis.
She works overtime, huh?
Yeah, and probably sleeps in. Come on.
Yeah. I hope that nobody is peeking because they'll think Santa Claus is off schedule.
I think perhaps I can manage without the whiskers.
Yeah.
Ouch!
Now you look like an imposter.
Will you ring Louis?
Okay. You know, this is the type house I got a feeling Santa Claus would have to use the servants' entrance.
Yes.
I'm Simon Templar.
You are?
I am.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Mr. Templar, all butlers are like him?
I doubt it. I think he's been practicing.
Haw.
Haw.
Well, good night, then.
I think not.
Would you mind removing your shoe from the door?
I would.
You might at least have shined it.
Humphrey, whoever is it at this time of night?
No one, madam.
Oh, but such an interesting-looking no one. Santa Claus, you've lost your whiskers.
I haven't. They're right here in my pocket.
How nice.
Actually, my name is Simon Templar.
I'm Carla Worth.
This is Louis.
Hi. Oh, I mean...
Hi.
Be kind to the peasants type.
Did you want to see me?
Now that I've seen you, yes.
Well, come in then.
Thank you.
But, madam...
Humphrey, go away.
Yes, madam.
Humphrey's such a problem sometimes. Shall we? Nice?
Yeah. Fire in the fireplace, books on the bookshelves, port in that decanter.
Yes, would you like some?
No, thank you. I just wanted to be sure the accessories were all correct. Someday, maybe I'll find some other wine besides port in a decanter. I dream.
Simon, are you the one who found them?
It's beginning again.
Found what?
My jewels, of course.
Have they been lost?
Simon, they were stolen. You know that, don't you?
Should I?
I've heard of the saint, Simon. I didn't know he was also a Santa Claus.
Oh, it's a fleeting impulse. When were your jewels stolen?
This afternoon. You see, Claude, my husband, that is, bought me them for Christmas.
Santa Claus.
Louis.
Sorry.
We decided to have the party this afternoon. We thought it'd be nice to have a quiet eve, so we did. The jewels were in quite a large box. There were quite a lot of them.
And?
Claude had hired a Santa Claus, but before the party was over, Santa Claus had disappeared. So had the jewels.
Well, there must have been some precautions.
Oh, there were several detectives. But the Santa Claus said he was going out to get some air while the party was on. He never came back. But he didn't have the jewels on him. The box was locked, and it was too large for the detectives not to have noticed.
I see. The name of the man hired to play Santa Claus was, of course,
Fats Boylan. And who may you be?
Claude, this is Simon Templar. And Louis.
I know neither of them. Snoops, obviously. Get rid of them.
Claude likes to behave as though he were an emperor on occasion.
The box wasn't found anywhere in the house?
The jewel box, no.
The jewels were insured?
Naturally. It's none of your affair. I shall speak severely to Humphrey. He should never have let you in.
I let them in, darling.
So now he's going to speak severely to her.
We'll go quietly, except... Mr. Worth, what is Fats Boylan's address?
I have no idea. Good night.
Good night, Simon, and I'm sorry.
So am I.
I'll show you out.
Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow.
Pronounced Carla Worth.
Yeah. What do we do now, Santa Claus?
We get into your nice, clean cab and... Hey, wait a minute, Louis. Now we're going to find out what became of Sally.
Simon,
Well, good evening, Sally.
I overheard. Fat's address is 17 Beale Street.
17 Beale.
Yes, I've got to get right back to the house before anybody notices. Goodbye.
An awful short visit.
But long enough.
Now we're going to visit Mr. Boylan?
I think so.
I hope he ain't so handy with a gun as the rest of these characters.
He may be, he may not be.
Now I'm all cheered up.
But there's one thing I'm sure he isn't.
What's that?
Fat.
Quite a change from the Waits dump. Now this is a dump.
Yeah, and Mr. Boylan would seem to be shy.
Mr. Templar, you said something about the one thing he wouldn't be was fat. Why, because he was called Fats?
Not exactly. Louis, I'm worried.
Hey, the door was open.
Yes,
Maybe that means our bird has flown?
maybe. Come on, let's go in.
Okay. I ain't usually so poetical, but the light's on,
Yes.
and the room looks funny. Looks like a hurricane came to stay for dinner.
And remained for 6 months.
Somebody was looking for a jewel box?
And someone obviously didn't find it. The extent of the search indicates that. Nothing was left untouched.
It's a funny smell in this room, you know. A couple of funny smells.
Yeah. One's perfume and the other...
Gunpowder. Huh?
gunpowder.
That's why I ain't been looking behind any pieces of furniture.
It really wasn't very far to look, Louis.
Huh?
He's behind the daybed.
Fats?
Fats, Louis.
He ain't doing so good?
He's dead. And Louis,
Yeah?
he wasn't fat.
Mr. Templar?
Yes, Louis?
We're being followed. Since we got out of Boylan's place.
Oh, that's interesting. Louis, stop the cab.
That'll make it easier for whoever's following us.
Exactly what I want.
Even on Christmas Eve, this shouldn't happen. Now what?
We get out. Don't look behind you. Start walking.
This here is a nice, lonely street.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is home hanging up stockings. I wouldn't mind hanging up stockings myself. Who do you think it is?
I think it's our friend Hudson.
Oh, I just lost 5 pounds. You mean the guy that was chasing Sally, who was all ready to shoot us until she made the explosion?
Neat reminder.
Oh, you think he wants our money or our life?
Possibly.
What kind of an answer is that?
In here. Quickly.
Here. Mr. Templar, this here alley is full of garbage cans.
It's also dark.
You don't have to see garbage cans to know they're around. Hudson?
Yes. Good evening, Hudson.
What?
Don't turn around. I've got a gun on you.
Hey, I don't like it.
Louis, take Mr. Hudson's gun away from him.
Okay. Got it, Mr. Templar.
Good. Aim it at him.
Hey, now, wait a minute. You can't shoot me with my own gun.
Why not?
That ain't tactful.
What other gun could I shoot you with?
Your own. Hey, you mean you ain't got a... Oh, mister, you are a liar.
And on Christmas Eve, too. Hudson, who hired you to follow Sally and me?
It was my own idea.
Louis, Mr. Hudson isn't being friendly.
He ain't, huh?
He ain't. Therefore...
Hey, now, don't lose your heads, fellas.
We've lost patience with him, Louis.
We have?
Shoot him, Louis. He's beginning to bore me.
He's beginning to... I should shoot him?
Yes.
Fatal?
Fatal.
Okay. Except I don't know what my wife and 6 kids are going to say
You
about...
haven't got a wife and 6 kids.
Now, wait a minute, please.
Louis, we're being cruel, prolonging Mr. Hudson's agony. Put him out of it.
Now, wait a minute. I'll...
Who hired you?
Mrs. Worth. Mrs. Carla Worth.
You quite sure?
Strike me dead. That is, don't strike me dead. Look, if she didn't, why would I say she did?
You have a point there. But why should she have wanted you to follow Sally?
Well, she had an idea. Her husband and Sally were kind of,
kind of decorating their own little tree together.
I couldn't put it more tactful.
I see. So if you got enough divorce evidence, Mrs. Worth could hold up her husband for plenty of alimony.
No.
Oh,
Mrs. Worth is the babe with the dough. Mr. Worth is a very well-educated bum.
Indeed. Huh? It's interesting. Louis, let me have the gun.
Yeah, here.
Hey, wait, I just told you the truth.
I'm sure you did.
Mr. Templar, that's gratitude?
It's necessity.
Oh.
We need him out of the way for a little while. He's out of the way. Now,
Yeah?
Now we're going to find out who else knew that Fats Boylan was thin.
You know, if we visited often enough, I might even get accustomed to this joint.
You might also start confusing yourself with Grant. Good evening, Humphrey.
I'm sorry the family have retired for the night.
Well, it is late, I know.
I wish to retire myself.
Why, Humphrey, you don't look 65.
Good night, sir.
Aren't you going to ask us in?
No.
Why, Humphrey, I thought you and I were going to sing Christmas carols together.
Let go of me.
Shut the door, Louis.
Okay.
I shall complain.
All right, but not now.
Mr. Templar, I'm going to wear that gun out hitting people over the head with it.
And I couldn't have him warn anyone we're here.
Why, we're going to burgle the joint?
In a way.
Huh?
And a kinder description would be search the place, Louis.
Oh, for what?
Oddly enough, something that can't be seen or touched.
Sounds like a ghost.
Yes, and in a way it is. The ghost of a murderer.
It's the night before Christmas, all right, but a creature is stirring. A couple of creatures, plus.
We've covered all the rooms on the other landing. Therefore, the bedroom should be here. And therefore, this should be someone's bedroom. Let's go in.
We're sleepy?
Now, if I can open the door softly enough and look in. Moonlight through the window. Yes. The dressing room. Door beyond would be the bedroom proper.
Proper is not a word we're in any position to throw around.
We'll have to go in to the dressing room. Come on, Louis.
Okay.
Wait a minute, Louis. Inhale.
Mr. Templar, I don't usually take breathing exercises in the middle of the night.
Louis.
All right. I'm inhaling.
Well?
Perfume.
Mm-hmm. Familiar?
I could learn to love it, but no.
Well, then out we go.
You didn't care for that perfume.
It didn't tell me anything.
What do you want perfume should tell you?
Who killed Fats Boylan?
Another bedroom. We go in?
Naturally.
For a bachelor, that ain't the word you should have used. I'm beginning to get worried about this. Supposing somebody screamed.
Pull yourself together, Louis.
Okay. After all, like the poet says, strong heart never won fair maiden.
You mean faint heart.
All right, so for dinner I'll eat dog food.
Now. Another dressing room. Well?
Hey, Mr. Templar.
Yes. The same perfume we noticed. Uh-oh. Don't be frightened.
Why, Simon, what are you doing in here?
Louis and I have been testing perfumes.
It's the middle of the night. You awakened me.
I'm sorry. I'm even sorrier about something else.
What's that?
The perfume you use is very distinctive, Sally.
Am I supposed to say thanks?
No. Because the last place Louis and I noticed it was in Fats Boylan's room. Minutes after he'd been killed.
Oh.
Not good, Sally.
You're making all this up, or...
No. This bottle of perfume will be evidence.
But I didn't kill Boylan. You must be joking about that.
I don't think a jury would find it funny. You knew about Boylan stealing the jewels. You must have helped him.
I didn't.
But then you found yourself being trailed by Hudson, who'd been hired by Mrs. Worth. You were afraid he'd discover the connection between you and Boylan. That's why you came to my apartment.
No.
Oh, yes. You hoped I'd throw Hudson off, perhaps frighten him. In the meanwhile, you could get to Boylan, get the jewels from him.
That isn't true.
But when you got to Boylan's place, you found him already dead, and the jewels gone.
I didn't.
It would be much better for you that way.
What do you mean?
You wouldn't be liable to a first-degree murder charge.
But there were detectives here while the party was going on. Boylan couldn't have stolen the jewels. They saw him leave. He didn't have them.
He did have them. He was playing Santa Claus, and he was a thin man. Santa Clauses, as Louis pointed out to me earlier tonight, are fat. Therefore, Boylan entered this house wearing padding underneath his costume. He left it with a large jewel box in place of the padding. That's how he did it, Sally.
You're smart.
You found Boylan. You knew his address. Therefore, you'd hired him in the first place. And therefore, also, a jury would believe you'd killed him unless you tell us who did.
Well, all right. I'll tell you.
There's really no need, my dear.
Oh, Claude.
Hey, Mr. Templar, tell him to point the gun someplace else.
Mr. Worth, point that gun someplace else.
I prefer this direction. You were saying, Mr. Templar, about the jewels.
The jewels were insured. Therefore, you, Mr. Worth, arranged to have them stolen.
Indeed.
Indeed. In that way, you could retain the jewels, the insurance money as well, and not worry very much whether or not your wife divorced you. Clever.
Boylan is dead.
How true. You had to see to that, didn't you? Otherwise, he might have blackmailed you for the rest of your life, or for whatever money you got out of the entire crooked deal.
I can see two other deaths. Yours, your friend.
And Sally? You going to kill her, too?
That depends, I should think, on Sally.
Claude, I never knew you intended to kill anyone.
There's no need to play the ingenue quite so strenuously, my dear. You were in on most of it.
But not murder.
I'm afraid Mr. Templar's pessimism is justified. I shall have to include you. But however did you get onto her, Templar?
Her perfume. To be precise, this perfume.
Well, you got him in the eye.
Yeah, I hope this gets him someplace more effective.
Mr. Templar, the trail of unconscious bodies you're leaving behind you tonight, if laid end to end...
Yes, Louis?
...would look terrible.
Simon.
Yes, Carla?
You've been very sweet. Even without your whiskers, you've been sort of a Santa Claus to me. May I?
Oh, with pleasure.
Well, I never knew Santa Claus could kiss like that.
Santa Claus is no saint.
Yes?
Oh. Hello, Louis.
Mr. Templar, you better put on your whiskers. You forgotten all about Mrs. Winterbottom?
Mrs. Oh, well, the hour is past midnight. The tots have undoubtedly tottered off to bed by now. Louis, you may tell Mrs. Winterbottom.
I know. That the saint ain't no Santa Claus.
You have been listening to another transcribed adventure of The Saint, the Robin Hood of modern crime. Now, here is our star, Vincent Price.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of us who live in the United States are aware of the spiritual values of American life, our factories and machines and luxuries. But there is another side to American life, a side made up of spiritual values. Our country was founded upon faith in God. In the Declaration of Independence, it states that men were endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Thus, religious faith is part of the very foundation of American democracy, and one of our most precious national heritages is freedom of worship. By exercising this freedom, you and your families can enjoy the spiritual pleasures that come with church or synagogue attendance. Moreover, your religious leaders stand ready to give you their help, whether you need personal or family guidance. And if you suffer the loneliness natural to a newcomer to this country, the churches of your faith will welcome you. We all know that without spiritual values, the other advantages of American life have little meaning. Without faith, the family and the community become unstable. Without faith, the individual denies himself the peace and guidance of religion. The doors of your churches and synagogues are open to you. The freedom to worship as you please is yours. And so America's religious organizations invite you to find yourself through faith and to come to church this week. And may I wish you all a wonderful Christmas, and for the world, peace in all the years to come. This is Vincent Price inviting you to join us again next week at this same time for another exciting adventure of the Saint. Good night.
This adventure of the Saint was written by Louis Vittes. Our cast included Mary Shipp as Sally and Betty Lou Gerson as Carla. Hi Everback was Hudson, Ted Osborne, Claude. The butler, Stanley Farrar. Louis is played by Larry Dotkin. The Saint, based on characters created by Leslie Charteris, is a James L. Safier production and is directed by Helen Mack. Vincent Price is soon to be seen co-starring in RKO's production of His Kind of Woman. All you Saint fans will be glad to know that the Saint comic books are on sale at all newsstands. Your announcer, Don Stanley. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC. For your Christmas Eve listening pleasure, there's another broadcast of NBC's Sunday hour-and-a-half extravaganza, The Big Show. There's a whole Christmas stocking full of stars, including Tallulah, Jimmy Durante, Ed Wynn, Charles Boyer, Robert Merrill, and many more. Tonight also means your weekly visit with the Harris family on the Phil Harris-Alice Faye Show. Be sure to hear this special Christmas program later today on NBC.
Happy holiday, happy listening. Happy holiday, happy listening. NBC wishes you a season of good cheer. A merry, merry Christmas and a happier New Year.
fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fellow. Hi-yo, Silver! Hi!
It was an hour before midnight. In spite of the snow that fell in large drifting flakes, an unusual brightness was reflected by the shimmering whiteness of the trail as the Lone Ranger, with his 14-year-old nephew Dan Reed and with his Indian companion Tonto, rode leisurely along toward the town of Silverton.
You haven't said much, Dan. What's on your mind?
Well, as a matter of fact, sir, I'm wondering why we're riding to Silverton. It's so late and with the snow and all.
Well, maybe you tell Dan everything now, so him enjoy visit we make tonight, Kimasabi.
All right, Tonto. I think Dan will learn a lesson from what's happened. And what's more, I think he'll appreciate what's to come.
Golly, I'd like to hear about it, sir.
I guess you've heard of Mr. Upton, who came to Silverton about 8 months ago and bought the silver mining company there?
Oh, yes, sir. He has a boy about my age named Donald. I met Donald Upton several times at the general store in town.
Well, Mr. Upton has an office in town, and Walt Miller was manager of the mining headquarters outside of Silverton. Upton rarely went to the mine and left things out there in Miller's hands. About 3 weeks ago, Walt Miller entered Mr. Upton's office and...
Good morning, Walt. I suppose you've come for the payroll.
That's right, Mr. Upton.
Bill, my clerk here, brought the money over from the bank a while ago. I'll count it out for you shortly and lock it in the bag for you to take out to the cashier at the mine. By the way, how's old Sheldon getting along?
Well, sir, as a matter of fact, Sheldon's resigned and took a job over at Pecos.
Sheldon resigned?
Yes, sir. But I put a new man on last week. Nice chap that Sheldon knew in Stockton. He's a bank teller there. Came there about 6 months ago.
Oh, I see. Why did he want to leave the bank?
He sure had reason enough. His job pays a lot more for one thing, and he needs money bad. Has a boy about 8 years old and a wife who's an invalid. Seems a skittish horse threw her a couple of months ago, and she hasn't been able to walk since.
Oh, that's too bad.
It sure is. Dawson hopes to get enough money someday to pay a good surgeon to examine her and maybe do something for her.
Dawson, did you say?
Yes, sir. That's his name, Paul Dawson. Live in that rather shabby little house at the east end of town.
Paul Dawson, huh? And he went to Stockton about 6 months ago?
Yes, sir. Came from St. Louis, I understand.
I see. So he's our new cashier out at the mine, huh?
Yes, sir.
I suppose you'll follow the usual routine with Dawson as you have with Sheldon. Carry the locked bag containing the payroll to him and have him open it with the key I left out there?
That's right. You have the only other key to lock it with. As long as you handle the money here and he's responsible for it out there, I'd rather not have a key to the bag.
Of course. Well, I'll get the money from the safe. I hope that fellow's trustworthy, since he's so badly in need of cash.
Well, I'm sure he is, Mr. Upton.
Well, here's the cash. Put the bag on my desk and open it up.
All right. There it is.
Cash is tied up as usual in bundles of $500 each. Here are 11 bundles to make the necessary $5,500 for the payroll. I'll put them in. There's one bundle, 2, 3, 4.
Upton slowly counted the bundles of cash as he put them in the small black bag under the watchful eyes of Walt Miller. Finally, all 11 bundles were in the bag. Then, as Mr. Upton closed the bag and reached into his pocket for the key, he spoke to Miller.
By the way, Walt, step into the back office and tell Bill I want him to ride out to the mine with you. I've heard of outlaws in the vicinity.
Gosh, in that case, I'll be glad to have him go. I'll get him. Glad Bill's coming with me. Wouldn't like to get robbed on the way.
Golly, did outlaws hold them up on the way?
Oh, Dan. They arrived at the mine headquarters safely. Turned the bag over to the cashier, Paul Dawson. Bill went back to town, and Walt left Paul alone in the headquarters office to make up the payroll. A little later, Walt returned to the mining office.
Almost knocked you down, Paul.
I was just coming out to call you, Mr. Miller. The payroll's short.
Short? What can't be?
Come and see for yourself. Look there. 10 bundles when there should be 11. There's $500 short. Mr. Upton must have made a mistake.
Now, hold on, Dawson. He didn't make any mistake. I saw him put 11 bundles in that bag. You're making the mistake if you think you can pull a fast one like that.
But I tell you, when I unlocked the bag and took out the money, only 10 were in it.
Bill rode with me all the way, and that bag was locked. Only you and the boss have keys to it. And I know he put in 11. You go get your hat. We're going in to talk to the sheriff right now.
No.
And I'm willing to bet...
No, I won't go with you. You can't blame me for taking the money. I'm leaving here now.
Oh, no, you're not.
Get out of my way. Gotta get away quick. I won't let him send me to prison. I won't.
Oh, Paul Dawson ran from the mining office and rode off into the hills.
Golly.
Of course, the sheriff and a posse hunted for him. But he managed to cover his tracks and get away.
Gosh. What about his invalid wife and his little boy?
Well, that was the sad part of it. Dawson's wife and his boy, Sandy, were left destitute. Hunt and I didn't know about them at the time, or we would have helped.
That's right.
For 2 weeks, nothing was heard of Dawson. During that time, the widow Downs, a neighbor who had little herself, did what she could for Sandy and his mother. Well, one day, about a week ago, Mrs. Downs took some soup and carried it over to Dawson's shabby little house.
Good morning, Sandy. I brought a bit of soup for you and your mother.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Downs. Mom will be awful glad to get some soup.
I'm sure she will. I'll bring it in. It's warm and ready to sip, so I'll just take it into the other room for her. Come along, Sandy.
Who is it, Sandy? Oh, Mrs. Downs. How nice of you to come over.
Here's a bit of soup that'll warm you up, my dear.
I'd rather Sandy had it, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm not very hungry, Mama. You take it.
Now, there's enough for both. Sandy, lad, bring another bowl like a good boy.
Golly, yes.
Oh, bless his heart.
Another week and Christmas will be here, Mrs. Downs. It isn't fair for a young child to face such a bare, drab Christmas as Sandy'll have to go through. I know Paul didn't steal that money. I thought that somehow he'd get to us. That he'd... Mrs. Downs.
You want to ask me something?
Yes. Could you take Sandy to the general store? They'll have a bit of tinsel or other trimming hanging about for him to see. Would you mind?
Gosh, I'd I'd like to go.
Of course I'll take him. We'll go there right now. And while we're gone, Mrs. Dawson, you can take your soup. Have your soup first, Sandy. Then we'll walk down to the general store.
So the kindly Mrs. Downs took Sandy with her to the store so he could see the meager trimmings the storekeeper had put up for the holidays.
Oh, gosh.
Like any small boy of 8, he forgot his troubles when they got there and enjoyed the holiday atmosphere. But the event was spoiled for Sandy when Donald Upton, a few years older than he, entered the store and came over to speak to Sandy.
Hello. You're that Dawson kid, aren't you?
Uh-huh.
I'll bet you're not going to have a Christmas tree. My father's getting a big one with lots of trimmings, too.
Maybe I'll have one, too.
I suppose you think Santa Claus will bring you one. Is that it?
My mother says that the real Santa Claus is the spirit of the Christ child that makes people want to give gifts because Christmas is his birthday. And if everyone does right and wishes hard enough, the wishes might come true at Christmas. So there.
Aw, do you know what I think?
See here, Donald Upton, you've said enough. Sandy, lad, there's a little pine in my yard, and we'll cut that down for a Christmas tree for you.
Golly, I feel sorry for little Sandy.
Todd and I did, too, when we heard about it later.
That's right.
Well, a few days ago, Tonto and I, who had been hunting for Paul Dawson without success, had a bit of luck. We rode near Eagle Canyon, and Tonto noticed a thin column of smoke rising from back up the canyon. We rode up there and saw a deserted prospector's cabin. Leaving our horses, we approached cautiously on foot and sneaked open the door. We saw a man asleep on a cot against the far wall.
There, man, sleeping on cot. Back yonder, Kimasabi.
Yes. He must be worn out with fatigue not to have heard us come in. Let's look.
Kimasabi, that looked like Dawson. Me see him once at mine.
Get your gun handy. I'll waken him. Dawson. Dawson, wake up.
Outlaws.
You're covered. Now go for your gun.
I don't have a gun. If this is your cabin...
Dawson, we've been hunting for you to take you to the sheriff for the mine office robbery.
I didn't steal that money. Look, would I be here now like this if I had?
What do you mean?
I haven't eaten for 2 days. I lost my horse. If I'd stolen money, would I try to live on scraps, berries, anything I could find like I've done? All right, take me back. I can't stand it any longer. I worry about my wife and son. It's driving me crazy. Crazy, I tell you.
Here, sit down, Dawson. Take it easy.
That money, if I could only figure it out somehow. Only Upton and I had keys to the bank. But he's rich. Why would he want to take it? He'd know I'd get the blame.
Does Upton know you, Paul?
Not that I know of. I've never even seen the man. Oh. The only Upton I knew was back in St. Louis. He was a doctor, a well-to-do surgeon. He had reason to hate me, but he left St. Louis. I haven't heard of him since. No, this couldn't be the same one. And anyway, he didn't even know I was around.
Did that doctor you speak of have reason to leave St. Louis?
Yes, very good reason. To avoid arrest.
Did he have any family? A wife and son, perhaps?
Yes. Yes, he did. Why?
Paul, after you answer a few more questions, I think I will take you back to town to prove that you didn't steal that money after all.
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger story. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now to continue our story. As the Lone Ranger with Tonto and Dan Reed rode leisurely along the trail to Silverton in a light snowstorm, the masked man took time to tell Dan the story of Paul Dawson and his little family.
Well, Dan, as I've told you, we found Paul Dawson asleep in a deserted cabin and woke him up. His denial of guilt and the few things he told me about a doctor in St. Louis roused my curiosity, though I questioned him further. Both Tonto and I were impressed with the way Dawson answered my questions. Now, tell me, Paul, what was it that Dr. Upton did that caused him to leave St. Louis? And what was your connection with the matter?
More than 8 months ago, my uncle was sheriff there. He's dead now. Anyway, he made me a deputy, though I worked part-time in a bank, too.
Go on.
The bank was held up. The 2 outlaws got away, but we got a look at them. And we knew one of them had been wounded by one of our bullets.
I see. What then?
My uncle was quite sick at the time, so I took a posse out after them. The next day, we caught them in their hideout some distance away. The wounded outlaw's shoulder had been treated by a doctor and properly bandaged, as we could readily tell.
Yes, I understand. Go on.
They both swore that the well-known surgeon, Dr. Upton, had fixed the wound, but that he demanded $1,000 of the stolen money for doing it, promising that he'd send them out of town in his own carriage.
That's not good.
Anyway, I delayed getting out a warrant out for Upton's arrest for a while. But the outlaw's story rang true, and someone had seen the doctor's carriage going out of town over the route they had taken.
That's interesting.
Well, finally, I went to Dr. Upton's house myself. But someone had tipped him off, and he'd left town.
That was proof of guilt?
No, wait, let me finish. His wife and son, Donald, stayed on in the fine big house for a while. Then she quietly sold it to some Easterner. Just as quietly left St. Louis to join the doctor someplace.
Oh, what then?
The outlaws came up for trial, and they were sentenced to hang. Just before the hanging, they confessed that the doctor didn't know they were outlaws at all, and that he didn't demand the money they said he did.
Then why didn't he stay to defend himself?
Everyone was bitter against him at the time. I guess he felt he didn't have a chance. I'm in a position to know how he felt now.
That's right.
I had no way of contacting him to let him know. Then when my uncle died 3 months ago, I brought my wife and son out to Stockton and took a job in the bank. A few weeks ago, I got the job at the mine office. That's all there is to it.
I see. Then, still thinking that you might be after him, Dr. Upton would do what he could to prevent you from disclosing his identity. At least until after he could put you in such a position that no one would believe whatever you might have said against him.
You mean you really think Mr. Upton in Silverton is Dr. Upton?
Yes, Paul, I do think so. I intend to make sure. I'm going to take you to stay a short time with someone I know is your friend, until I can have the charge against you cleared.
Gosh, mister, if you could do that, well, Christmas is coming in a few days, and I could go home.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping, Paul. Come on, we'll take you back to town now.
Golly, did you get things cleared up like you wanted to, sir?
I'm coming to that, Dan. Todd and I left Paul with Mrs. Downs. That night before last, I went to Upton's house. I waited until I knew he was sitting up alone. Then I went to the door.
Well, a masked man.
I've come to talk to you, Mr. Upton.
What could an outlaw have to discuss with me?
I'm not an outlaw. I came as a friend, and I'm certain you'll be very glad to hear what I came to say. Dr. Upton.
Dr. Upton? How did you know? I mean, you made a mistake.
You just gave yourself away, Doctor. Now, do you care to listen to me, or shall I go elsewhere?
No, come in. By thunder, if you came here to blackmail me...
I haven't any such intentions. But I did come here to get you to admit you framed young Dawson.
Ridiculous. There's an open and shut case against him.
You ought to know how it feels to be wrongly accused, Doctor.
Wrongly accused? You believe that I was...
I know you were. Your name has been cleared back in St. Louis.
What? Are you sure of that?
Positive. Paul Dawson hoped to find you to tell you so.
Then they know I'm not guilty. Oh, thank heaven. But how do you know all this? You must have seen Paul Dawson recently.
That's right. I have.
I don't know what to say.
You've done him a great wrong. It's up to you to do what you can to right that wrong.
Yes, I did wrong Dawson. I thought he was here to find me, to disclose the facts about me. But I can't admit in front of everyone that I withheld that money from the bag. No, I can't do that. I won't.
You've just admitted it to me.
It would be your word against mine, and they'd take mine.
Maybe. I understand the sheriff is out of town. Won't be back until day after tomorrow, Doctor.
It's no use arguing.
Day after tomorrow is Christmas Eve. It'd be a good day for you to have a talk with the sheriff and clear Dawson. I'll wait until then. I advise you to think it over carefully. Good night, Dr. Upton.
Gosh, did Dr. Upton go to the sheriff?
Yes, he did, Dan. And the charges against Paul Dawson were dropped. Mr. Upton explained that he had withheld the money. When I told Paul, you can imagine how he felt. Well, this is Christmas Eve. Just after dark, I took Mrs. Downs and Paul Dawson to Paul's house. When we reached the front porch, we found Dr. Upton waiting. Neither he nor Paul spoke a word. I whispered to them to follow me. Mrs. Downs had told me that Sandy's scraggly little pine tree was up in the front room, and that she and Sandy had trimmed it with bows made of bits of ribbon or little balls of cotton. I had mentally compared it with a big glittering tree I'd seen at Upton's. We quietly opened the door to the darkened room. Sandy had brought a blanket and spread it close to the tree to sleep on. As we tiptoed in and stood just inside, we saw Sandy's figure kneeling near the tree. We listened.
My little Christmas tree is better than any of them. And thank you, God, for sending it to me. And please, God, let your spirit of Christmas make my mom well again. Don't bother about a present for me, except only send back my daddy. Donald Upton said there wasn't any Santa Claus, but I know there is, because he's the spirit of the Christ child that makes folks want to give. So please, see that I get what I asked for just now. Amen.
Sandy spoke his childish prayer. A moonbeam broke through the clouds and entered the window. It was like a small spotlight from the heavens, touching the little tree and sparkling in the ribbon bows. Then Paul spoke softly, brokenly.
Sandy. Sandy, I've come home.
Daddy! Oh, Daddy!
My boy.
I knew you'd come. I knew I'd get my wish.
Sandy,
Bless his
my
trusting little heart.
That little tree. It seemed to be touched with the whole spirit of Christmas.
And why not, Mr. Upton? A little touch of hope and love went into every little bow on its branches, each one made by Sandy's own hands.
Sandy? Who's out there?
I'm coming, Mama. Come on, everybody.
Turn up the lamp, son, so I can see who's with you.
I'll turn it up, Dora.
Paul! Oh, Paul, you've come back to us.
Yes, and to stay, honey. Oh, everything's all right now. I've been cleared.
Oh, thank heaven. But who?
The masked man is a friend, and a good one.
How do you do, Mrs. Dawson?
How do you do?
Paul, your other visitor?
Oh, yes. You know Mrs. Downs. This man is...
I am Dr. Upton from St. Louis, Mrs. Dawson.
Dr. Upton? Why,
The past is forgotten, I hope. The future? Well, as I heard Sandy say, if one wishes hard enough, perhaps I can make you walk again. I feel sure I can.
Oh, golly, Mama. I got both things I asked for. What you said about the spirit of Christmas is true. I'll always believe in it, Mama, even when I'm grown up.
I hope you will, Sandy.
I've just begun to believe. Later tonight, I want to bring my son and some others from town to this house. In this simple home, I've really found the spirit of Christmas.
That's the story, Dan. Now, there's Dawson's place just ahead. We'll ride close to the window and find out if Dr. Upton did return with the townsman he said he was bringing. Here we are. Oh, Silver.
Victor.
Fella. Easy. Steady, big fella. Yes, I can see them in there. Look, Dan. There's Dr. Upton holding Sandy in his arms, see?
Oh, gosh. He sure looks happy. And he's singing with the others, too.
Me like hear Christmas singing.
Well, they seem so happy and all. With the snow falling and the singing, I feel sort of different inside. Like they said they did.
I like to believe, Dan, that the spirit of the Christ child is the spirit of Christmas. For these people have found it among the humble surroundings here, just as the shepherds and the wise men found it in even more humble surroundings. A little stable in Bethlehem.
This is a feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated, created and produced by George W. Trendle, directed by Charles D. Livingston, and edited by Fran Stryker. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer.
You're listening to Old Time Radio USA's annual holiday programming of an Old Time Radio USA Christmas, brought to you by the WOTR Radio Network and me, Santa. Merry Christmas.